I'm Nick Harcourt, and I am here at No Vacancy. It's very salubrious surroundings, as you can see. And I'm with Matthew Kos from Nada Surf. Great to see you.
Great to see you, Nick.
So, last time I spoke to you, I just told you before we started rolling, I was stunned when I looked at it. On my way in to do this today, I looked it up, and it was like 19 years ago.
That's shocking, because it doesn't feel like it.
It was in 2005 on my old show at KCRW, and the album was The Weight is a Gift. Right. And you guys were talking about it being the 10th anniversary of the band. Well, you're coming up on 30 years as a band now.
You know what's funny is when we were making our second record in 1998, I remember we had a conversation about the bands that we'd been on tour with and how a lot of them had broken up. Like, I guess we're just in it for the long haul, staying together, and that was 98. So that's really silly. That's a long time ago.
It is a long time, and obviously a lot of records and a lot of life in between in those years. And I'm interested to ask you a little bit about moving to the UK about 15 years ago. I know your dad was English originally. So living in Cambridge.
I kind of love it. It's really peaceful, and New York isn't going anywhere, and I get to go back and get my dose. But I like the slow pace, and going on tour is always exciting. And then I have enough nightlife to last me forever. I don't need any.
How long a train ride is it from Cambridge into London if you want to go see something?
It's 50 minutes.
50?
50. However, the last direct train is at 11:09, I think.
Coming out of London.
That's right. And and that's the 50-minute train. And after that, you're looking at the 1 hour 50, the 2 hour train. So I'm always trying to get that 11:09. And if I want to see a band and stick around after at all, it's surprisingly hard. So I try and track everything good that's coming to Cambridge that I can catch locally.
Right. And it's a college town, obviously, university, Cambridge. My sister went there years ago, did a PhD. So I spent a little bit of time there. But what kind of town is it outside of being a college town?
Well, it doesn't feel like a college town in the way like an American college town would feel, like where some students stay and open clubs and coffee shops and bookstores and stuff. There are those things, but they're not. It doesn't feel like they're run by doesn't feel like they were started by kids right out of college.
Right.
The culture it's a little different. So it just feels like a land out of time. It's like a living postcard, And if you see somebody, this is a joke, but if you see somebody walking down the street who looks like a mad scientist, they're probably a mad scientist.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Not like in New York where they're just mad.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. It's a little bit different.
Right.
Yeah. Last time we saw you on KCSN on the SoCal Sound, I think was in the first year of the pandemic, and I remember you came in. I didn't get to see you. Somebody else snagged the interview.
Right.
But that album was written, I'm presuming, pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
As opposed to the new album, which we want to talk about.
Yeah.
Which I'm guessing at least some of the songs have been written in the last 3 or 4 years.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. So it was weird that Never Not Together. Some of the ideas in it fit into the pandemic, but maybe that's just because those ideas are always around, isolation and the need for connection, et cetera. It's just maybe the pandemic amplified them or amplified our need for connection, And living in England, I still pay most of attention to American politics and American society, And it's pretty poignant being far away from it and seeing the distress that it's in. It makes me think sometimes of, I love watching movies on planes, and I always get incredibly emotional at movies on planes, Total Waterworks, And I think it's because, the earth is down there, and you're up in this peaceful place just kind of looking at this, at our problems down below.
So the new album's called Moon Mirror. Tell us about this collection of songs, and it sounds like, well, I've listened to the record, and the record sounds a little bit different from your previous work.
Yeah.
And what about lyrically? It sounds like you've gone through some changes yourself.
Yeah, well, I think, I don't know. I mean, in the past, I guess most songs are introspective, and in the past, maybe I was thinking more about relationships, but now I'm trying to figure myself out. I've recently figured out that I have ADHD, and it's a great relief. I'm so glad to know, because I used to think I was lazy because sometimes I would freeze up and not be able to do things. And I was so confused by that because I love working. I love nothing more than making something, getting something done. So I didn't know how to deal with this idea that I was lazy. What can I do about it? It seems wrong. But now, I'm anxious. Well, I can try and figure that out. Take a walk, meditate, listen to some calm music. There are things you can try and do. So there's a lot about that. And the album title, maybe it's a little emblematic of the record. I was thinking about, this isn't very deep, but I was struck by this idea that the moon is the only object we've all looked at, aside from the sun, which you can't really stare at. But we've all seen trees, right? But not the same one.
Right.
We've seen clouds, not the same one. But we have all, 7 billion of us, everyone who can see and who can look up and who's been outside at night or near a window, we've seen the very same thing. And most humans who've ever lived have looked at the same thing. And many of us have looked at it in a moment of introspection or while walking alone at night. So maybe we've all asked it questions. Maybe it's been our companion, all of us.
Is that a romantic thing as well, though? Because,
Yeah.
I remember when I was younger, people would say, if you're not with the person that you love or care about, just look at the moon, and wherever they are, they can look at the moon as well, and you're connecting somehow.
I had heard that, and I've forgotten that, and I'm glad that you brought that up, because that's exactly what I was thinking, is if I can see it, and you can see it, then maybe I can see you,
There's a thread that runs through the record. I don't think it necessarily, well, you tell me, it doesn't seem to have an overarching arc or concept, right. But there seems to be a thread of acceptance.
Yes. Oh, I'm glad.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I'm glad you see that. Well, yeah, accepting things in yourself and working with them, but not condemning, and accepting things in others so that you can preserve a relationship. And being right is overrated. You need to be right. You need to prove every point.
I love that you're saying that, because, again, we're getting a little bit older, and hopefully we evolve as humans, let alone as artists. But I kind of learned that myself about 10 years ago, where I was like, I don't have to be right.
Right.
It's really overrated.
Yeah. What good does it do? And sometimes it's destructive in a way. Keep your rightness to yourself.
Right.
Yeah. And also blame doesn't do much good. So now I feel like I'm more sensitive to it than I used to be, because it's seductive, the idea of blame, because it can take your, you have a discomfort or a problem or something. If you can blame somebody else, and all of a sudden you're absolved, and you get to enjoy that, or anger if you enjoy it, which that's seductive too. I try not to, but now I'm really sensitive to it, and I can catch myself a couple of times every day thinking, oh, that was... doesn't matter whose fault it was. In fact, it doesn't have to be anyone's fault. In fact, we don't need to litigate any of this. It just doesn't matter.
Yeah, if you're in a relationship or whatever, and somebody does something that bothers you, it's like, oh, whatever.
Let it go.
I don't need to get into a major fight about this or anything. Yeah. That's in personal relationships. What about in your observations? As you said, you spend a lot of time looking to the States, living in the UK, but still connected politically to what's going on, and obviously friends and family. How does America look to you from the outside these days?
I mean, I just watched the debate the other night, and Kamala Harris said we have more that unites us than separates us, and that's absolutely right. It seems very like we've been trained to look at our differences and exaggerate them, into our kind of tribalism, I'm not very articulate about it. It makes me sad,
I'm just wondering if those observations make their way into your material as well.
Yeah, they probably do. I wouldn't be able to articulate how, but I am thinking about that a lot. And civility too, the way a lot of people in person would not talk to each other the way they talk to each other in a comment thread. I think that's sad. And I think a lot that things like just making anything is so important. You know, arts programs in schools, so that somebody can feel creative, so that they don't need to look for that sense of identity through criticism or anger or painting somebody with a broad brush. You know, I think that's why it's so important to have a hobby. You know, something that you like to do, where you can feel like you have a character, you have an identity, you know.
I know that through the years you've worked with a lot of different producers.
Yeah.
And I'm always intrigued to know what a particular producer can bring to a project. Ian Lawton is the guy who co-produced this with you. Tell us about working with him and how you think that the sound of the band and the material shifted in that process.
Well, he's sort of a vibe doctor. He's our tour manager of 20 years and our sound man of 20 years. And his approach to touring is very producerly. The most important thing is that everybody be in a good mood. As he just elevates the vibe. He's a really funny guy, full of great stories. He's kind of a Zelig of rock. He's just toured with a lot of bands at really interesting times. And so he's kind of corrals our excitement. And a few years ago, it occurred to us that, you know, he'd be a great record producer, and he really is. And an old friend of his, Nick Bryan, is at Rockfield. So we've made the last couple of records there, Rockfield in Wales.
Yeah.
A lot of our favorite, you know.
I remember watching that documentary about that studio recently.
Yeah.
It's a crazy place.
It's a crazy place. And the first 3 Echo and the Bunnymen records were made there, and Shake Some Action by the Flaming Groovies was made there, and a zillion other. I'm not at all an authority on the place, but so many good albums. But Ian's kind of an excitement hunter. And our tours and our shows just got better when he started working with us. And vibe is kind of the most important thing, you know? Because if you're getting along, you'll do that take where everybody's feeling good and in the moment, and not, you know, trying to escape or blaming somebody else for the funny vibe in the room, you know.
A new record label this time as well, and perhaps an unusual home for you.
I mean, possibly, because they put out all sorts of music, but not to pigeonhole them, but it's kind of an Americana label.
We're talking New West Records.
New West Records, yeah. And we're not what you would call an Americana band, but I kind of love that, because when people who are into Americana like us, I believe them, because they don't need us, you know.
Right.
There are plenty of them.
So I would imagine last time around, it was kind of hard to work the record, right? Because it came out in the first year of the pandemic.
Yeah.
Nobody was really touring for, a year or more.
Yeah.
This time around, you get a full run at it.
Yeah.
By doing things like this, obviously, promo and setting up the record.
Yeah.
And then you're going to be touring later this year.
Yeah, we're touring through the States in October and through Europe in November, December, and then we'll probably do some second legs in both of those in the spring. And it's nice to get a full run on it. The pandemic happened right in the middle of our touring for Never Not Together, so we have like tour T-shirts where the left column happened and the right column didn't. You know, so yeah, it's nice. But I know a lot of bands didn't even get to do that, so we were lucky to get half a run at it.
Well, if you still have any of those left, they're collectibles. You should get rid of them on this tour.
We'll try to.
So the album is called Moon Mirror, and we're at No Vacancy, and we're shooting this late afternoon, early evening, and you're going to perform for us when the sun goes down.
Yep.
So it's great to see you again. Thank you so
really
much.
Good to see you.
Yeah,
really enjoyed talking.
Thanks, Matthew.